this meeting. Yes, so that it will be available after that through YouTube. Once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this first event, which is called Digital Transformation and Democracy, organized by students from Bulgaria and North Macedonia. And I hope that we'll have very good discussion. Without any delay, I would like to invite Mr. Torsten Geisler, a partner and a friend of our organizations, who is director of Bulgaria office of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, for his welcoming remarks. So Torsten, please.
Thank you, Jordan, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this conference on behalf of Konrad Adenauer Foundation. And of course, I would like to start with a big thank you to our partners, Sofia Security Forum, its president, Jordan Boshilov, a partner, a friend for a long time, and the Faculty of Security of the University of Bitola in North Macedonia, and its dean, Professor Nikola Dujovsky. Today, we will talk about the digital transformation and democracy. We are at the beginning of a technological revolution. Most of us use smartphones and social networks. We use the internet to transfer money. In some countries, there's electronic voting, to give just a few examples. But this is just the beginning. In the future, ever smarter AI systems could undergo a recursive self-improvement, trigger an intelligence explosion, leaving human intellect far behind. It's a development with many opportunities, but also with significant risks. With the help of AI, decision-making could be improved. Currently, in politics, decision-making is overshadowed by individual power interests. Problems have become so complex that neither individual decision-makers nor institutions can still cope with them. Short-term profit interests corrupt sustainable entrepreneurial development. AI one day will be able to cope with the factors that need to be taken into consideration when making a decision. Facts, trends, interdependencies, statistical weightings, laws. And if with regard to the political sphere, AI could design for every problem several possible and meaningful solutions among which the people could choose one, then the system would still be democratic. But there are also concerns that AI will lead to a massive loss of jobs, privacy violations, massive supervision. Bad data could lead to algorithmic bias with terrible consequences. Socioeconomic inequality could grow. And what is if AI is programmed to do something devastating? What if autonomous weapon systems are programmed to kill? What is if AI is programmed to do something beneficial, but it develops a destructive method for achieving its goal? Such consequences could be avoided if the basis of possible decisions designed by AI would be an ethical layer. AI systems would then be led by value systems, such as the Charter of Human Rights, or constitutional aspects such as the dignity of man is inviolable. But do all those who develop AI or who want to make use of them want such an ethical layer? I have my doubts. So there are many questions, and I'm glad that several well-renowned experts will today take a closer look at these problems and will help us to find out whether there are possible solutions, and they will offer them. I thank them very much for joining us today, for sharing their expertise with us, and I wish us all a beneficial conference. And once again, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, Torsten, for your introductory remarks. Actually, you outlined most of the topics which will be covered today. And now I would like to invite my good friend Nikola Dujovsky, who is Dean of Faculty of Security of University of Bitola, Skopje. So, Nikola, please, very glad to virtually meet you.
Thank you very much, Jordan. It is a great pleasure to meet you and Mr. Geisler also. Thank you very much for the invitation to cooperate together in organizing of this event. It is very important for us as the Faculty of Security to be involved in different activities regarding knowledge of 21st century. Dear Mr. Geisler, thank you very much for the cooperation and for your support. I would like to assure you that our students and the Faculty of Security, but also our university, are very involved and of course, we would like to create and to design new kind and new ways of cooperation. Today's event for me is very important, not only because of the very interesting topics that we will have possibility to hear later on, but also because of the cooperation that our students will do with the students from Bulgaria. Knowledge of 21st century, meaning sharing of experience, sharing of knowledge, especially in digital era where all kind of activities could be done through internet. And of course, crime and criminal activities are also very present to the internet and using social media. People with different backgrounds could done a lot good, but also not very good things. That's why I would like to support students and young people from both countries to cooperate, to exchange their data, to stay in touch and to create a new approach of education and of course of cooperation in the 21st century. I would like to wish a success to today's presenters and of course looking forward to constructive discussion later on. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, Nicola, very much. And I really hope to see you and good friends from Macedonia next year in person, either in Bulgaria or in Skopje. As Torsten and Nicola already said a lot about today's conference and the topic, I would just like to stress on two important to me issues in today's discussion. First is related to democracy. And it is important to remember that democracy does not happen by accident. We have to defend it, we have to fight for it, we have to strengthen it. We all have to tackle the threats faced by democracies today through collective actions. And I think this is the main message of the recently held Summit for Democracy. And democracy is not just the right of people to vote, as some would like to present it, but it is much more. It is protection of rights of all people. It is fight against corruption and corrupt government. It's fight for human dignity. It's rule of law, and more and more and more. And the second, this is the fact that today Macedonian and Bulgarian young people will debate together such an important issues. This is, I think, a model for our rulers, how they must proceed, looking forward to find solutions to bilateral issues in the benefit of all people. I won't take more time, but before I give the floor to our moderators, Leila Radulovic and Ioana Stambuliska, I would like to wish you all very happy holidays, very happy New Year, and very successful year. And please stay safe. Hope we'll see each other in person, as I said, next year. And now over to you, Leila and Ioana.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Ioana Stambuliska, and I'm fourth year international relations student. And this year I'm chairman of International Relations Research Student Association in University of National and World Economy in Bulgaria. I'm one of the moderators with Leila of this conference, and for me it's a big pleasure to be here. Thank you, and for Mr. Jordan Bujiu for the invitation to be here with you. I believe and I'm sure that there will be a great discussion, and good luck of all the participants. Leila?
Thank you, Ioana. Hello, everyone. I'm Leila Radulovic, student from the Faculty of Security from Skopje, North Macedonia. And I would like to say that it's a big pleasure to be part of this discussion and to speak with all of you. Also, big thanks to the Sofia Security Forum Konrad Adenauer Stiftung from Sofia, and the Faculty of Security from Skopje, who gave us an opportunity to cooperate with each other and at the same time to form new friendship through this kind of events. So as you know, today I'm going to be the moderator for the participants from the Macedonian side. And we have here three great students from our faculty, Hristina Mitanovska, Teodora Pancheva, and Mr. Dragan Sekulovski, director of the Journalists Association from North Macedonia. And he is also a doctoral student at our faculty. So I would like to say, before starting the presentations, each speaker has from 8 to 10 minutes with their presentation. And also feel free to leave a comment in the chat or by raising your hand to speak with the presenters about their topics. And then at the end of the presentations, we can discuss all together. Thank you.
Okay, so our first presenter is Veselin Tashev. Hello, can you say some words?
Yes, I hope you hear me. Okay, perfect. Hello, everyone. Dear Mr. Buzilov, Mr. Geisler, Mr. Duyovsky, your moderators and guests and participants. Thank you all for allowing me to take part in this wonderful conference. As you heard, my name is Veselin Tashev, a member of the International Relations Research Student Association to the University of National and World Economy. I will be speaking about digital democracy, the opportunities and challenges for young people in Bulgaria. The foundations of modern policy are situated within civil society and the public sphere, where initiatives are born, interests and identities are formulated. Both civil society and the public sphere are inseparable from a corresponding communicative space. The nature and changes of communications between citizens through which they establish social ties, identities, and solidarity. The digitalization of communications leads to significant transformations in these two main pillars on which policy is based. The use of information and communication technologies creates conditions for the increase of citizens' access to public information and the ability to participate in decision-making processes. At the same time, the exercise of the right to freedom of expression is also increasing. Digital democracy can be defined as the pursuit and the practice of democracy in whatever view using digital media in online and offline political communication. It consists of all electronic means of communication, enabling or facilitating the path of citizens to take action to ensure that politicians are responsible for their acts and behavior in the field of public life, as well as increasing the opportunities of every citizen to be involved in the formation and development of the latest democratic values through dissemination of information, creation of civil groups in accordance with their interests, and their participation in government. In the book, Digital Citizenship, the Internet, Society, and Participation, it is said digital citizenship is the opportunity to participate online in publicly significant activities, and digital citizens are those who use technology to get political information in order to fulfill their civil debt. An indicator of the existence of civil society is its ability to put pressure on the state in order to achieve certain objectives and satisfy relevant interests of social communities. The main means of achieving these goals are usually the media, which forms public opinion, from which political parties are desperately dependent. So far, the place where this theater was played were the old traditional media, while today it's transferred to the internet, and this leads to a change in politics. Through digital democracy, a series of new opportunities for self-organization of citizens and sharply expanding the scope of civic organizations, regardless of time and space, emerges. I will briefly mention just a few of them. The internet allows much easier expression of personal preferences of elements, parties, and institutions, which elements, parties, and institutions use as a basis for decision-making. These preferences are mainly related to voting behavior, with participation through voting rights, but also through the possibility of expressing opinion in each individual's public domain. The internet allows consumers and organizations to communicate directly and not to comply with traditional media, which in practice means that they can publish information which in other circumstances or in the past could have been blocked from reaching the media and hence be restricted from the attention of other citizens. The internet also allows the formation of discussion groups between individuals interested in one or more specific issue, thus promoting interaction between them. It leads to an increase in the pluralism of opinions, and allows citizens and new organizations to express their opinions, to organize and challenge the established order, or if needed, to fight for change. It should be mentioned that the internet is a powerful weapon to protect the rights and interests of marginalized groups, deprived of certain rights and opportunities that have so far in human history not been able to self-organize. They can come into contact with individuals and groups facing similar problems with which they have not had the opportunity to communicate in the past. The internet allows them to not only self-organize, through it they can get a huge amount of knowledge and information. Through it, they enter into active communication with other groups and institutions. They can present their demands, protect them, and promote them to receive support from different directions. Keeping in mind that civic engagement is increasingly moving online, and while the transformation from analog to digital is likely to bring the above-mentioned opportunities, it also brings serious challenges. Privacy, equality, and security are very important in determining how digital democracy evolves. Digital democracy has not yet been able to level out inequalities between social groups. Uneven conditions of access to technology are caused by three interrelated phenomena. First, the digital divide. Biases in internet availability can resist participation to those with appropriate technologies while leaving those without access voiceless. Secondly, digital exclusion. Certain groups are systematically underrepresented in online political groups and social discourses. Thirdly, the digital ignorance. Digital technology, social media in particular, is responsible for spreading hoaxes and misinformation and enhancing polarizing political opinions. Digitally misinformed citizens are not only harming themselves with distorted perceptions of reality and polarized opinions, they collectively impact on the erosion of trust in policymakers. Digital democracy is data consuming, which should always be kept in mind. While governmental approaches vary, they often lack proper frameworks, posing serious threats to citizens' privacy. Privacy is further threatened by the growing number of links between public organizations and tech companies applying emerging technologies to innovative policy-making techniques, where we should mention that the largest amount of citizens' private data is no longer held by the government or governmental entities, but rather by private companies. The development of the information society and the entry of information and communication technologies into democratic processes leads to the emergence of new rights for citizens and better democratic participations. However, the decisive touchstone of digital democracy and digital participation in terms of democracy is the influence of political decisions. I believe that once the privacy, equality, and security threats are resolved or at least improved through government policies, we will all see a rise in digital participation and witness a thriving democratic society. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasilin. Okay, so with the next participant, or there is some comments? Okay, I will. Yes.
Yes, we can start. So thank you, Mr. Veselin Tasha. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all to this presentation from the next speaker, Kristina Medanovska. And she's going to talk about the impact of foreign fighters on security in digital era. So Kristina, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. The pleasure is mine. In the beginning, I want to say thank you for the organization of this wonderful meeting. Then I hope you're doing well and you're ready for today's presentations. My presentation is titled, I'm sorry. It's titled The Impact of Forgery Fighters on Security in Digital Era. In the beginning, I want to say what is security, what is digital era, and forgery fighters. Security is the freedom from or rise against potential harm, because it
There is a kind of echo, Christina. I don't know where it's come from. I ask all participants to mute their microphones. Yes, Christina, I think most probably it's come from your computer.
Now.
Is there any other device near you from where your voice can re-enter again in the system?
Okay. Okay. I think it's good now. Let's continue. The important terms are the international security, digital security, and human security. I'm so sorry about the problems about the voice and presentation. Then, what is the digital era? The digital era is the time of the large, almost of information and widely able to many people on the computer technology. Fortune fighters is a term that means individual who lives in a country's origin or a habitat serving to become involved in the violence as a part of the insurance on a non-state armed group in an armed conflict. Forging fighters in the Balkans. What means the connection between the forging fighters and the Balkans? That is a history, then the excellent geography location, natural national ethnic intolerance. That is a term, the barrel of gunpowder. The Balkan is the place which is most of the aspects of society can attack with some kind of conflicts. The poor legal solution and the lackness of the restitution system. Technology. Then the connection between the era and the forgery fighters, technology as I'm added in the surgery of the partitions and excellent technology as the means of the communication is valid to attack in the world nameless the product of the opportunities. Where does the problem start? Sorry, I can ask, do you see the presentation that I share?
Christina, we see only the second slide. You may proceed without the presentation. Now we see.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry about the problems. Why the problem start? The economy and the financial solution in the Balkan countries, corruption, then mafia stronger than the state, dysfunctional judgment system, and provide and the mindset of the people who live in the countries in the Balkans. In the next slide, I have the two diagrams. The first is the picture of the forgery fighters in Syria and Iraq. We can see that Macedonia is in the third place after the Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina with the most of the forgery fighters in this region. Then we have some pictures of the diagrams of the Western Balkan forgery fighters in Syria and Iraq and the challenges of returners in perspective. The Macedonia is in the third place. We can see them, I can zoom in this slide, that Macedonia is in position after the Austria and the Kosovo and Belgium, with the most of forgery fighters. International activities. The European Union and United Nations give special time to protect and to give a solution for this problem in this period. That is the Europol activities of the Court of Europe, activities of the United Nations and Security Court, Western forgery fighters and the trends in impact. That is one wonderful the number of the forgery fighters in the Balkans and the forgery terrorist fighters mutual in the Germans. In the end, we have the solution and opportunities. The change of the national legislations, the regards in the state with their reports and verifications, and special region and international coordination about how to protect the returns of the forgery fighters, the prevention measures, which means how to protect, to not come to the possible and in perspective some kind of terroristic act with effect of forgery fighters and young education. About this last slide, I want to speak a little bit more. It's most important to say that young people are not educated about what means to go outside in the Syria or Iraq in the war. They're not that aware of the effects that made. Most of them are not educated enough. And in the end, thank you everyone. I'm Kristina Mitanovska, student of Faculty of Security. Feel free to ask me any other question here or later in my email address. And I'm so sorry about the problems about the presentation, the voice.
Thank you, Kristina, for the good points from your presentation. You can now close your presentation. And I would like to say that somewhere I read a quote that says, if the world ever disappears, it will be a consequence of the terrorism and the climate changes. And we all know that it's a fact that the terrorism is a big threat for every society. So my question for you is, how can the young people be more informed about the threats that are coming from the terrorism, and what do we need to supplement in the education to have more information?
It's all about the people awareness about the terrorism, about them behavior. It's important to know what the terms means, what you do with your acts. And then we are not enough educated in the schools. We are that is some kind of social society taboo. We don't speak about the effects. We don't speak about the things that maybe made some kind of problems in the future. I see the problem there in the education system, in maybe in the family education also, because there is not enough education about what that means and how much that is important in this era.
Thank you, Kristina, for the great answer. So our next speaker is Mr. Dragan Sekulovski, and he's going to talk about the role of journalism in the digital era, and also what are the pros and the cons of the topic. Mr. Dragan, you can start with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Radulovic. I just want to greet everybody here and thank you for the invitation that I just received about this very nice event. It's always a pleasure to speak about these important topics, especially with young people and especially on a bilateral level between countries in the Western Balkans. So first of all, can you see my presentation and can you hear me well? Okay, good. So the role of journalism in the digital democracy and what are the pros and cons is a very important topic, which is pretty much debated in local context here. And I'm quite sure that also in Bulgaria, this is a hot topic. So one of the things I wanted to mention, so in the past, let's say, this is a picture, I guess you can see, from a journalist that was pretty much standard like 50 years ago. So you would see like an old typing writer Then people used to smoke in the offices, newspapers, actually they still smoke, some of them, unfortunately, in the offices. But this was the traditional way how the journalism was conducted. And pretty much people were dependent from traditional media because the internet era and the digitalization was pretty much in poor development. This is the second slide. I guess you can see this as well. So this is the journalism today. Basically, a whole crew of 8 to 10 people can fit in one backpack. And younger generations, especially journalists which are devoted to mobile journalism, they tend to have like a close moving studio when they're trying to report about different events. So nowadays, reporting from a protest, from a violent event, from a nice event, or just like reporting a statement can be done simply by a smartphone and a few other tools. And the quality of the videos that can be produced in today's era is pretty much with good quality for news as well. So this is basically pretty much a huge difference that happened in the last 10 years, I would say. On the next slide, you would see a photo which is taken by a friend of mine. He's one of the most, I would say, important and well-known photo reporters in the country. Nowadays, we have like 8 photo reporters in North Macedonia, and 7 years ago, there were like 40. So rapidly, this is a demonstration that the journalism profession is pretty much aging. And this photo is taken in the shopping center in the city center, and you can see an elder person which is reading his newspaper. You know, this kind of pictures with people reading newspapers, especially in the downtown, is pretty much, I would say, a retro moment, because nowadays it's pretty much often you would see younger people in a cafe reading different information from their mobile phone or a tablet or a laptop, but reading newspapers, especially in public space, is something that can be found if you're lucky these days. So I want to say, what is the difference? I mean, you all know the rough difference between traditional and new media, but since we're speaking about the digitalization and the role of journalism, it is a fair thing to say that the traditional media mainly stipulate television, radio, and newspapers, magazines, even books, and then you have other types of information placed on billboards, movies, signs, and so on. The new media are basically on another platform, and as you all know, the mainstream are on the online websites, and then you have also podcasts, which is quite popular, but now also streaming videos can be pretty much influential. So if like 15 years ago, a column within a newspaper was something that can, you know, educate you or maybe give you some information regarding important process, nowadays this is a podcast that can be found on some of the internet platforms. So we need to have in mind that online media needs to strengthen integrity to gain the audience trust. Over-regulation may restrict the freedom of expression, hence the right of information. And this is a typical problem for the Western Balkan countries, you know, because the Western Balkan countries, most of them are being candidate for EU, and very often the parliaments are trying to adopt laws which are not obliging the operators like Facebook, Twitter, and others, but they're obliging basically the users and the citizens. And therefore, this can restrict the freedom of expression. And lastly, the media self-regulation is a good model. I guess not all of you knows what is a media self-regulation. In North Macedonia, we do have a good, interesting concept, and we are one of the first countries which are trying to develop this concept. So on the next slide, you will see ProMedia, promedia.mk is a website. And here we are trying to gather all professional online media. At the moment, there are like 180 in this country. And everybody that wants to be a member, they need to fulfill some conditions. There are like 8 conditions that the online media should fulfill. And if they're part of this traditional, I would say, professional online media, then the economic chamber and commercials are being supportive more to these media than the others. So this is like a self-regulation model, and it's not dependable by law. So if you're an online media and if you are actually willing to be a part of a group of professionals with integrity, then you need to fulfill some criteria. So more about this concept is available on promedia.mk, but in general, a media is an entity that must have an impressum, like editor, editorial office, and so on. This is the difference between open social network and a traditional or online digital media. Then to comply with the code of journalist ethics, because you know, you can find, let's say, blogs, or you can find social media groups in which not always the ethics of journalists is being present. And also other aspects are important if you want to be part of this register, and that's also a legal entity to be registered within the country. I'm interested to know whether in Bulgaria it has something similar, but this is a new concept in Macedonia, and it was pretty much applauded by the Council of Europe and the European Commission last year. So what is the conclusion? I'm trying to say so many things on this topic, but I gotta be short and I gotta be direct. So I'm gonna try to extract like few things which are important to be mentioned. The most important thing is that digital media are important, but we all need traditional media. We can't just quit the traditional media. Why? Number one, in era of informative chaos and disinformation, people are desperate, in desperate need of professional journalists who can go beyond headlines and ask the hard questions that need to be asked. Very often you have only, let's say, triggering headlines on online media, but rarely you would see like a quality content with quality journalistic questions in the public interest area. A good news story informs and educates readers, but today's superficial news is more common because advertisers are more interested to have clicks rather to have quality content. And this is something that you should all have in mind before clicking any kind of news. Traditional media is a must at a time when citizens need insights and explanations instead of headlines. So what else? A couple of more things which are very important. I'm going to end with this slide because my 8 minutes is ending. Traditional media is still the most credible news source. For example, based on the last research in North Macedonia, the biggest percentage of the population is still receiving on daily basis information mainly from TV stations. So although the trend is growing and people are getting more information on digital platforms, still vast majority of the citizens, especially elder generations, are still receiving information from TV stations, but also from radio and newspapers. And lastly, but very important, my colleagues, the journalists, would pretty much agree, everybody with this, quality journalism must be supported in future, more by the audience. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of this is that, you know, nowadays everything is on demand. If I want to read something, I'm going to go to this domain, I'm going to pay a subscription for that. So I don't actually wait for a big telecommunication company or a pharmaceutical company to pay adverbs in order some media to be motivated to disperse the news. So basically the question is, if we want to have quality journalists, we really need to, in a way, support them by subscription, support them by donations, support them by our interest and by spending time to read quality news. Otherwise, we would be in a way flooded with superficial news, which are in a way PR oriented or pretty much in line, not with the objective journalism. So this is in short lines from my side. I'm going to say благодарам or merci. And this is my email below. And thank you for the attention and for the pleasure to be part of this event.
Thank you, Mr. Sekulovsky, for an interesting presentation. So we all know that we live in a time when everything is changing and improving, and also we have so many opportunities that we can use with the help of the internet. So my question for you is, what do you think? Should we focus on the new digital media or the old way of being informed?
It's a good question. My answer would be, we should focus to objective and professional journalism, despite whether this is on digital or on traditional media. Unfortunately, when we have crisis, the journalism is on a test. I'm going to demonstrate an example of, you are all aware, 20 days ago, there was a horrible tragic accident in Bulgaria in which 45 citizens of Macedonia lost their lives. Unfortunately, not all of the media in Macedonia were professional about this, especially the online media. So what is the thing that I personally do? When I'm going to see a headline or a title which is in capital letters with question marks and it's starting with shocking, or it's starting, you got to read this, or it's starting like, this is like the biggest misery or secret in the planet, I'm trying just to skip that. This is not in my radar. So basically, I'm not clicking on this, because if I'm clicking sensational news, especially when the tragedies happened recently, I don't want to support that kind of media with my attention. Therefore, I'm trying to find the credible news. I'm trying to find the, let's say, the public broadcaster, the public Macedonian informative agency, or the Bulgarian Informative Agency. Then I'm also reading my, let's say, daily news from a media outlets, mainly digital, which I know that in at least they have like 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 journalists. It's not one person, one media. I'm trying to avoid this kind of media. So it is difficult to locate the most credible and the most ethical media, but it is also our obligation as readers, as viewers, as participants in the public discourse, when we're going to read something which is with disinformation, or when we're going to notice there is information which is a bit suspicious, we should not spread it on Facebook. We should not actually spread it on other platforms, because in this sense, we are collaborating with the unethical authors of these titles.
Thank you, Mr. Sokolowski, for your answer. So, Joanna, you can continue with the next speaker if he's ready.
Yes, thank you. Our next speaker is Katie Kang. Katie, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'm also very thankful for this unique opportunity to be part of this conference. My name is Kathy Kang, and I'm from South Korea originally, but I'm currently studying my PhD in Sofia University in Bulgaria. I will share my presentation with you. I hope you all can see it. Okay, yes, this is the title of my presentation, Digitalization, the Path to Smart Civil Society. First of all, what is digitalization? The fourth industrial revolution has opened a whole new world for interaction and communication, which now takes place in the digital space. Along with the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the world has moved, so to say, in the digital world. The fourth industrial revolution is defined by 3 main elements: digitalization, and integration of value charts, digitalization of product and service offering, and digital business models and customer access, along with Internet of Things platforms and cloud computing, as well as AI and augmented and virtual reality. In addition to the connectivity between different objects via 5G networks, the connectivity between people and objects, and the connectivity between people and people via 5G networks and smart objects are some of the day-to-day characteristics of the fourth industrial revolution. Thus, digitalization can be characterized by connectivity and communication between people and via smart technology. As digital innovations are rapidly reshaping the world we live in, also the environment where we study, work, or even go to groceries, it is imperative for us to take active part in the wave of the digital transformation. As individuals, we need to be active participants and not passive bystanders to the changes of the fourth industrial revolution, because soon there will be a fifth, a sixth, and seventh, and so on revolutions with a very rapid speed. Policymakers are hoping that technology can be used to legitimize the public sector, re-engage citizens in politics, and combat civic apathy. According to the European Parliament's briefing on rethinking democracy, 3 key global trends that are driving the ongoing digitalization of democratic decision-making are demographic patterns, urbanization, and technological advances, which are the key changes in how citizens interact, mobilize, and engage with decision makers. In line with these trends, unconventional forms of civic engagement are replacing offline, face-to-face forms of participation. Governments are transforming too by embracing digital tools to apply innovation to the quantity and quality of participatory channels. This does not mean that offline engagement is irrelevant. In-person engagement from citizens and civic organizations remains crucial, especially at local level. But civic engagement is increasingly moving online, and while this transition from analog to digital is likely to bring policymakers great opportunities, as my previous colleagues also mentioned, it does have its points that have to be taken into care of. Yeah, so here the role of civic society in the digital democracy is central to the question of why we should be more active and aware in the decision-making of our countries. Civil society organizations, and which are non-governmental groups such as trade unions, employers associations, and other social groups, allow citizens to take an active part in settling the political agenda. So equipping the citizens with transparent information, especially about the political agenda of one's country, through the tool of digital innovation can make smart citizens who are both digitally literate and equipped not only to gain the right knowledge through the digital platforms, but also to take part in the decision-making of their country's political agendas as well. In the past, smartphones were the very peak of innovation, but now we have smart homes, smart classrooms, and even smart cities. So being smart citizens should not be something new or frightening. It should be something that we are excited about. Very briefly, as a South Korean, I would like to give an example of the digital impact on the citizens' engagement in the decision-making of my country. South Korea is a digital pace setter because it's the world's most connected country. Not only is South Korea in the first place in the world for innovative economy, but the country is also a leader in the export of contents, which is achieved through the digital platforms. Korea's internet access reached more than 96% of adults in 2016, and the overall digital literacy of Koreans is also around the 90%. So we can see that the digital literacy is also a very important factor, as well as the very well developed Korean e-government policy. So I will be just brief. Yeah, I'm sorry. Korea has one of the global e-government. Korea has become one of the global e-government leaders, obtaining the highest scores in e-government development index. So the Korean e-government development index was actually the ranking was assessed by the United Nations, and it enhances the active participation of the society and the civil society into the government policy agenda making, as well as different solution making as well. So not only Korea, but also many governments are allocating resources to establish an e-government. An internet-based government service can deliver government services to citizens and private businesses more effectively with broader access and cost savings across government agencies. As an information network, an e-government can increase citizen participation in government to achieve an open government, and this will also enhance national competitiveness. Last but not least, I really thought about how can Bulgarian and Macedonian students cooperate, and the cooperation can be enhanced based on digitalization. So as my previous colleagues mentioned, I really think that despite the risks of dependency on cyberspace, if it is used wisely and carefully, the digital innovations can lead to new opportunities to expand democracy. The smart use of the digital space through keeping it can be achieved through the people, and more importantly, through the cooperation of the citizens and the students as well. I believe both countries have a potential for cooperation for digitalization. And one example for this is the cooperation on a project for deploying a nationwide digital identity solution, or a digital ID, in North Macedonia in October this year, which I recently read. This project was enabled by a global payment company, MasterCard, and operated by the Bulgarian trust provider Evertrust. This will offer long-distance digital-only verification and communication between governmental institutions and citizens, as well as business in the country. In addition to this, the digital agenda for the Western Balkans of the European Commission envisions strengthening the digital economy and society, boosting research and innovation for developing e-infrastructures in the Western Balkans. So I really think that the need of digital literacy is indeed crucial, and this will enhance more the connectedness of people to people. But this also goes both ways. The more connected are the people to people connectedness, the need for digital literacy grows, and actually, yes, it's vice versa. So yes, I'm sorry for being so long, but thank you for attention.
Thank you, Katie. Very interesting presentation. I have one question. Sorry, one question for you. Do you think that the digitalization's development has more positive than negative characteristics?
Yes, thank you for the question. So I personally, I think I'm a person who has been obliged by the digitalization because like currently due to the COVID pandemic, I am still in Bulgaria, but I can actually like anytime have a conference call with someone in South Korea or someone in the States. So personally, for me as a student or as a PhD researcher, I think digitalization has many pros. But as my previous colleague from Macedonia mentioned about the media part, I think it's really important to have this digital literacy that will enable us to really be able to differentiate and to know how we can see which information is right and which information is wrong, or more importantly, where we can get the right information. So personally, I think there are always pros and cons in anything, but it is really important to know where and how. And I think that's through digital literacy. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Miroslav Varbanov. Miroslav, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. My task for today is to give you more information about the role of digital democracy in the context of the current pandemic world. Before I start, I would like to say that digital democracy is like a consequence of the foundation of World Wide Web by Tim Berners-Lee in 1989. At that time, this term, who became trendy, at that time, this term was highly underestimated given the fact that it coincided with the fall of the Berlin Wall, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War with Malta Agreement, and so on. But soon afterwards, World Wide Web began to unleash its potential. So, as you see now, it's a viral thing. And digital democracy makes no exception when it comes to that. So now let's move forward to the definitions and to present you the good characteristics a digital democracy possesses. Well, firstly, over the last few years, there are various definitions over what digital democracy is. This trendy term was coined by American digital activist called Stephen Clift in 2009. And basically, digital democracy is, according to many dictionaries, it is a tool for digital inclusion of people in order to promote democracy more effectively. According to the Council of Europe, electronic democracy is an offer to enhance public engagement and participation in democratic institutions and democratic processes. So, what is the best thing that electronic democracy could offer? Well, the greatest effect e-democracy has is that it provides an opportunity to mobilize people much faster and easier. Because it's much faster to post something on Facebook and then mobilize the people. The first shot of this practice, we can say, is when we move back to 2008, during the Occupy movement, during the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. Electronic democracy invaded political arena as well. For instance, during presidential campaign of Donald Trump in 2016, he used Twitter, which is an online platform, in order to send messages to his supporters and the American citizens in general. We can also say that Bulgaria has its own tradition when it comes to digital democracy. And let's take as an example last year's anti-government protests in Bulgaria. At that time, the youth formed these protests, staged it through online media, and people were gathered, they went out and they expressed their opinion against the government of Borisov. Another plus is that digital democracy might also help to enhance greater government transparency and accessibility and minimize voting manipulations. I would say that this would benefit the Bulgarian scenario, given the fact there are many dead souls in the voters list. So I think this is a good step to be implemented in Bulgaria. Now let's focus more on the last year, because at that time, this was the climax of digital communication and digital democracy as well. The year 2020 made a colossal shift to the digitalization of the world because of coronavirus. Coronavirus has made governments to impose restrictions, to limit social activities, and so on. So people had to comply with the fact that they had no other option rather than joining social media and other online platforms. So it's safe to say that during the pandemic, digital communication reached its peak. In political aspect, access to conventional forms of democratic discussions like public meetings were constrained in favor of the digital media. If we move again back to 2020 and anti-government protests in Bulgaria, where the youth formed these protests online because actually they had no other options, otherwise they risked fines from authorities. So this means that we're on the verge of fully digital world. Politics and democracy make no exception too. There is likelihood meetings to be held online, like the current one, via platforms like Zoom, like Microsoft Teams, like Google Meet, and so on. And the political debate is likely to be moved to the digital platforms too. And I would say that political buildings and halls might become like panopticons, like a second option for that. So this begets the question, can digital democracy replace traditional one? Well, the answer might be negative, and I will provide you with some arguments. Firstly, although we name Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, and so on as social media, to my mind, there is nothing more anti-social than them. And it's something really cynical, because by using online platforms, people unfortunately got used to break contact with the real life. And with the outbreak of coronavirus, we might create more and more antisocial people who are unfamiliar to the real world when they get rid of their electronic devices. Another thing is that digitalization might prevent people from creativity and critical thinking. And with the lack of critical thinking, you become more susceptible to be manipulated by the governments. Let's say it. Last but not least, the lack of activity is unhealthy to people. You know, many people now experience severe physical strains, headaches, backaches, and so on. And also they become more and more depressed because they're oriented towards their electronic device, like laptop, let's say, and they cannot communicate live with people in a real situation. So, in the context of digital democracy, most of the problems that I mentioned, they are relevant, especially when it comes to the lack of critical thinking. Without realizing your interests, you actually cannot point out solutions to problems, and now governments have a great chance to offer to implement policies that are against us, but we cannot grasp that. We cannot grasp the meaning of their solutions, and you cannot put things into consideration when you're incompetent enough, because information doesn't mean knowledge. By scrolling online, you are bombed with information, but you cannot grasp the meaning. That's the main problem that digital democracy and digital communication in general provides us. Therefore, democracy risks to make democratic citizenship into a series of consumer choices. Well, as you know, many people today are indifferent to politics, unfortunately, and they are more oriented towards consumerism and hedonism. Another serious problem I would like to mention of digital democracy is the so-called digital division between information poor and information rich people. Still, there are millions of people, if not billions of people, who are disconnected to online platforms. So this is like a discrimination to those people who prefer traditional methods or have no access to online platforms. With all things considered, Although this type of democracy possesses many good characteristics, like to mobilize people faster, to provide us with more information and so on, I think that it cannot guarantee a sustainable democratic process. When it comes to politics, the coin again has two sides. On the one hand, it helps us, I mean, digital democracy helps us to communicate easier and faster, to form a sort of political activity. Okay. On the other hand, it prevents us from live discussions and creates hardships to those who are information poor. And to sum up, I would move back to what Dragan Sekulovsky said, that we just cannot despise traditional media. Still, many people rely on traditional means of communication, so we need a continuity between traditional media and online platforms. Let's make evolution, not revolution. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Miroslav. I have one question for you. Do you think that the states and the people have managed to cope relatively quickly to adapt to the situation after COVID? How do you think? What do you think?
Well, in general, people are deeply unprepared to cope with problems, and we have critical thinking, we have criticism, we have to pose questions in order to grasp what the situation is. So I'm not sure people who are predominantly unfamiliar to politics and to the processes around, they can deal with this problem.
Okay, thank you. So we go on with the next and the last participant.
Thank you, Mr. Miroslav Arbano. So the last speaker is Teodora Pancheva with her presentation on the topic, the role of students in policymaking in the educational process. So now I will pass the time to Teodora to start the presentation.
Hello, everyone. Excuse me a minute. My name is Teodora Pancheva. I am a student of Faculty of Security in Skopje. And I want to say that I have very big pleasure for being here and a part of this wonderful conference. And I want to say special thanks to our Faculty of Security, Sofia Security Forum, and Kudar Adanauer Stiftung. I have a presentation in topic the role of students in policymaking in the educational process. Since becoming independent up until now, our country, the Republic of North Macedonia, has gone through many changes, which were in harmony with the democracy and freedom of speech and people's freedom in general. Seen now from this perspective, from the perspective of a student, of course, I realized that we as young people have been lucky that many of the processes led by our country have ended in a peaceful and democratic way. As younger generations, we have an opportunity to grow up in a society that hasn't gone through many horrors and wars, such as some of our neighboring countries. As a democracy, the Republic of North Macedonia gives an opportunity to state your opinion and freely speak your beliefs, including the student's voice. Therefore, students through their organizations, such as a student plenum, student assembly, and similar, are consulted and involved in the process of implementation of reforms in education, culture, and social policy. The change in our society is obvious by the enormous involvement of the students in the process of creating certain politics or realization of some already established reforms. In recent years, throughout Europe, student participation in quality assurance and promotion in higher education institution has been clear and necessary. Student participation in this process is very important and is based on the respect of the student in the whole academic community. In North Macedonia, especially at the Faculty of Security in Skopje, in the last few years, there have been significant changes in the student-professor relationship. Students are not only passive recipients of knowledge, but they are also active participants in policymaking in the educational process. The Student Assembly was formed by secret elections by students where representative members were elected. The primary goal of the Student Assembly is to represent and defend the interests of students throughout the academic community. The Assembly fights for all the rights and interests of the students and protects them from any violation. As a student and member of the Student Assembly formed in the Faculty of Security in Skopje, I can say from a personal experience that the ideas, needs, and problems the students face are transparent and throughoutly examined in order to provide the best solution or correct an already existing one. Students need to feel empowered in their learning environment. They want to feel they want to feel they have input in the decisions that impact the daily environment of their universities. By allowing their voices to be heard on a variety of topics, students will have a better understanding of the faculty's daily and long-term goals. Every single student in every faculty has a voice that should be engaged in faculty. Student voice allows students to share who they are, what they believe in, and why they believe what they do with their parents, professors, and their entire faculty. Student voice enables students to be a part of the solution rather than a part of the problem. We as students strive to protect the rights and duties of every student, but we also take care that every student has the right to study under equal conditions as other students without any forms of discrimination. Within our faculty, each student has the opportunity to get involved in one of the activities to find in them what is personal satisfaction, but also discover motivation. Student Assembly is also open to hearing from students on any suggestions they may have. Also, we are open to the public. We have a Facebook page. The students have their representatives in the Scientific Council, where the students' opinion is expressed regarding any decision there needs to be made. Student Assembly of Faculty of Security strives to increase student engagement through the leadership opportunities and active involvement in student events. The Faculty of Security in Skopje also gives a great chance to the students for their great and active participation in various activities. The faculty is an institution that invests in students, works daily to improve the conditions for studying, provides opportunities for upgrading and advancement by confirming that education is valued and knowledge pays off. Students are also involved in various conferences organized by the faculty and a few other organizations, but they also appear in the role of organizers of such conferences where they can present their papers. We as students are also constantly working to improve our educational system by constantly collaborating with other institutions, related faculties and other organizations in order to organize student conferences. We also receive invitations from other institutions to participate in some projects where we can give our active contribution. I can say with pleasure that we are part of very large projects that was implemented. We were part of a very large project that was implemented in the women's part of the prison called Idrizova, and the name of the project was rehabilitation of women prisoners, where the members of the Student Assembly participate, but also the other students were included. And especially pleased that I want to say that our professors are our constant motivation, mirror, and example of what kind of people we should be in the future. students are always involved in all activities for quality education, which results in successful competition of studies. At the Faculty of Security also there is a psychological counseling center, which is led by a professor from our faculty, which helped the students, especially during the COVID pandemic, to maintain their mental health. Each student can schedule psychological counseling online at a time and place of their choice, where they can freely talk to a professor and ask for any help or support. The counseling is, of course, free and remains confidential. With the professor psychologist, we constantly organize webinars on various topics in the field of psychological health of people, which are of great benefit to students. We also have our own program on the university radio that is available to the students all the time. And the fact that our faculty takes care of our health and provides us with free help and support at all the time makes us proud students of the Faculty of Security. The members of the Student Assembly have regular meetings with the Dean of the faculty and the Vice Deans, where they openly point on the problems faced by the students, propose solutions, and agree on the activities and projects for the future. I can freely and confidently say that the students at the Faculty of Security in Skopje have the constant support and assistance from all the professors, vice deans, and from our dean, who is always ready to help students, who is always ready to hear our ideas and suggestions, and always gives us the opportunity to participate in various activities with other institutions in the Republic of North Macedonia. As I said, the opinion of the students is always taken into account, and the fact that our education has been raised to a higher level is also shown by the constant presence and teaching of experts in the field of security during the lectures. I'm talking about directors of the security institution, ministers who were students at our security and share their experience and helps us learn the lectures and give us directions for further study. In the end, I can freely say that the students' voice is always taken into account. Students have an active contribution in policy making in the educational process. Every idea, objection, problem, and proposal is transparently present and taken into account by the dean, the vice deans, and the professors. And together with the students, they are working to find an appropriate solution. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Teodora, for a great presentation. So I can say that as a member of the Faculty Student Assembly, we work very well together. And my question is, how the Faculty Student Assembly is helpful for the students in their needs? And do you think that the students' voice can make changes at their faculties?
Thank you, Lila, for your question. About the first question, we as some members of the Student Assembly are available to the students at any time to give them advice, support, to explain some things that are not clear to them, to help them learn the lessons, and of course we give them the opportunity to show their knowledge, their ideas, by including them and enabling them to be part of the various activities, conferences, and projects that we implement. About the first question, student voice, of course, is very important, and students must know that they have the right to, rights, and the faculties are institutions and who is obligated to respect those rights. The student's voice is very important, and every student should practice it, because the way we have closer contact with the professors, we can gain their trust and talk about all the problems and dilemmas we have related to the faculty.
Thank you, Teodora, for the answer. Thank you, Teodora, for the answer.
Okay, now we can start with the discussion, but before that, I have one question for Veselin, because I forgot to ask him. About your presentation, what do you think are the biggest challenges for young people in the digital democracy instead that you already said?
Thank you, Ioana, for the question. The main challenges, I would say, once again, related mostly to privacy, security, and equality. What I would emphasize is that many citizens are left voiceless by the lack of digital devices or digital knowledge. The use of digital tools has increased the control of data by governments and private companies and decreased citizens' control of their privacy. A positive change would be the increase and optimization of the opinion of citizens and the strengthening of data security through targeted policy, public policy. The challenges here are rooted in the fact that the past experiences show that the more the state intervenes in determining the rules by which the internet operates, the more it leads to appropriation of the network of state institutions and corporate interests. Therefore, the development of such rules should be carried out by the state, but with active assistance of network and civil society organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with Leo, we are prepared 2 questions for all the participants. And the first one is for all of you. Can you point out at least one positive feature of online working or studying for you?
Well, I would say we can cheat during the exams. It's much easier to pass our exams. And to some extent, it's more practical, yeah. It covers many distances. It doesn't create those barriers as compared to traditional education.
Okay, who is next? Come on. Okay, Katie, you go.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So yeah, I agree with Miroslav. Maybe I would also like to add that it actually really enables us to be more connected. So now we are actually like in Sofia and in Skopje, but at the same time, we're in the same place in the same time. So I think connectedness is a very crucial part of the digital education as a whole. But at the same time, as you already mentioned, it should be used very wisely because if it's misused, actually it could lead to many illegal activities. But at the same time, for me personally, I think the connectedness is a very crucial part. Thank you.
Still, we have to bear in mind that academism is actually related to live dialogue, to social contacts, and actually online education, online studying prevents us from this thing, unfortunately.
And if I may just jump in for a bit. So basically my colleagues, the journalism, they dislike this way of working, because imagine I'm making an interview with a politician or with somebody else, and instead of watching the person in the eye and trying to see the body language, trying to examine the thing that he or she may say without speaking, it's not really possible via Zoom, you know. So the journalistic profession is pretty much limited when it comes to not having the opportunity to be physically present on some events. Therefore, in almost all the countries in this region, in Southeastern Europe, when the lockdowns happened in this pandemic for the first time in March 2020, so only few professions had the privilege to be, outside on the street. And it was the members of the police, members of the medical department, and of course the media workers, because the journalists, they couldn't work from home. They couldn't, transmit what is the situation in the COVID centers, on the streets, in the restaurants, in the bars, whether the measures are being respected from their desk, from the living room or from the bedroom. So some professions are pretty much limited when it comes to using strictly online tools, although it may have its own advantages, especially in this kind of consultative, let's say, meetings or consultative formats of events. Also, speaking about investigative journalists, well, you can't really have a secret source and this source to be via Zoom. It's not really acceptable because the source would be exposed per se. So also this is, the information and the data which is being transmitted, pretty much it is safe in my opinion on these platforms, but not super safe. And it's not the same thing when it comes to safety, speaking on online applications and speaking in live. So yeah, there's some pros and cons. And basically, as I said in the beginning, the journalists are not really keen on using these applications in their daily job.
Thank you, Mr. Dragan. So I would like to say that I like working online only because I'm not in a hurry or in a traffic rush to get to work on time. And I think that's the only positive future of online working or learning. So I have a question for all the participants. And I would like to ask you, how do you like more working or learning, from home or going to work or at faculty?
Of course, going to work live, because we are social creatures. We need to create bridges between the people, because we need to adapt more social factors rather than despising them.
Okay, the others.
Thank you.
I will make a connection between first and second question. And I will say only thing that emotions die in the period of the digital era, and it's most important to not put in a habit these online things, not be addicted to say it's online, I will stay at home. It's most important to go in that social connections, to live the normal life back.
Can I actually ask a question to Mr. Dragan Sekulski?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I actually have a question about what is the opinion of the media about the metaverse and the virtual reality? Like, how will that be perceived in your opinion in the future? Because like, I'm asking this question because, for example, in Korea, many media, like the traditional media, uses a lot of artificial intelligence actually to connect, to post different informations connected to very universal things such as the weather or let's say some sort of stocks, etc. So my question would be, what is your opinion on the metaverse and the virtual reality in the media platform as a whole?
Yeah, thank you. It's I would say I didn't expect such a question, but I like it. So basically, when we speak about technology, virtual reality or tactics, how to report in a creative way, this in a way stipulates, first of all, resources that can handle the equipment, and number two, actual investments in equipment. In North Macedonia, we have possibly not more than 2 TV stations that actually has the capacity to perform something which is visually, I would say, unique. And most of the media outlets are having this traditional standard reporting, like, you have a report on the street. When it rains, they have an umbrella, a microphone, a camera, maybe a lighting, and that's it. But if we watch the news, let's say on the national broadcasters, not only from BBC or CNN, I would also recommend to see, just from the way of quality, how it's being done on a technical level, the Russian broadcaster. It's like the first time when I watched it like 3 years ago, I was shocked because it's kind of a Hollywood production. So I'm not commenting about the content or how ethical it is. I'm just saying on a level of a tactic and on a level of product, how this looks like. So combining the new technology and the resources together with creative way how to attract audience, I believe this is the future. But then again, we must be realistic that in our societies, let's say North Macedonia, the overall media market is less than 20 million euros, and you have more than 70 TV stations. So it's kind of a lot of media outlets and very small media market. So they, even if they compete on a you know, who is the most ethical one, I'm having doubts that they would have the means and the resources to produce such content. So in future, I believe that smaller media, like online media, they would do more creative solutions rather than traditional media, because they would need to compete, you know, on this methodology or in this way on the market. Because if I needs to choose like media A, B, C, D, and if the information is pretty much the same from ethical standards, I would pick the one which is having the most interesting approach. Because while being informed, I want to have some fun. I want to see something interesting, you know. So in my opinion, this is going to be a new trend, and it's going to be expensive. So not all of the media can actually, you know, conclude and to be everybody to keep on track with this. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dragan. So I would like to say thanks to everyone for your attention and time during this event. And I hope that you were having a good time to hear the speakers and their topics and to learn something that you didn't know. So unless anyone has anything to add, I think that we can finish this event. Big thanks to the organizations. It was an honor to have the opportunity to be a moderator and to participate in this online student conference. And I hope to see you soon one day and we can meet together. Thank you.
Yes, thank you too for everyone, and see you soon, I hope, in Rio.
Hope to see you offline.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope that we will continue with these types of discussions. I think it was a very rich discussion, very positive. We have to think about the consequences which digitalization might have on democracy. There might be positives, but also negatives. There might be positives like you know, more openness, more bringing more accountability in the society, but unfortunately we can misuse and create, for example, exclusive democracy rather than inclusive democracy. For example, we introduced this year in Bulgaria the machine voting, which actually discouraged or distracted old people, people who are not used to, you know, work with these gadgets from going to voting. So there are a lot of issues, and hope that yeah, we will keep in mind and continue discussions. Thank you once again, Nicola, and thank you very much to our Macedonian colleagues, and of course, Bulgarian participants. And not only Bulgarian, I see a lot of other people joined us. This is again positives of you know, online platforms like Zoom. Thank you once again.
Jordan, may I say a few words, please? Thank you very much.
Anytime.
Thank you to all students and to all friends for these presentations. It was very interesting to see that students are thinking very well, that they are aware for the circumstances in 21st century. I would like to stress once again, cooperate between you. Please share your contacts here on messages. Our students from the Faculty of Security, and not only from our faculty, but also from the universities of North Macedonia, spent a lot of time cooperating with students from the region. All of us are one region. This summer, our students went to Samokov in Bulgaria. Now we have a common conference. Next year, probably, we will send an invitation for our student conference celebrating 45 years of establishing of the Faculty of Security. And we hope to see you, Jordan, Mr. Geisler, and others here in Skopje to be our guests on events that we will organize next year. And of course, feel free to ask whatever you need. We, our professors, are here because of you. Thank you very much for this beautiful morning, and I hope to have another successful events like today.
Thank you very
Nicola,
much.
and we will come definitely. Torsten.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is a very kind offer and a great invitation. And I would just like to thank everybody who joined us today on behalf of Konrad Adenauer Foundation. Thank you for your input. I think it was a very successful event. And we would like to keep in touch with you. And I can only offer you our cooperation and our willingness to support future events.
Yes, thank you very much, and we'll rely on your partnership and support. And let's wish once again everyone very happy holidays, very successful and healthy New Year, and see you in Skopje or in Sofia next year. Bye.
Bye to everyone. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.